And so anyways, I guess kind of inspired by, for the summer I'm working at Techstars here in Austin, and they do a lot of like Q&As, like where are you with your product, and getting a lot of feedback. So I thought it would be cool to bring that dynamic to the group. So we're gonna have two people present today, just talk about their product, first talk about themselves, their product, what they've done so far, what they're looking to do next, and just kind of open it up for questions. They might have some questions for you guys to get some direct feedback, or open it up for any sort of thoughts, feedback. And it's going to be totally, open. So stop it at any time, raise questions, any comments, and so on and so forth. So it's very unstructured. You guys can interject whenever. So first we're going to have Tim come up, and he's going to present his company. And I'll kind of just let Tim, you take it.
Okay.
I'm just going to sit and watch like everyone else.
All right. Thank you, Luis. Unstructured. All right. That's great. We'll definitely go with that. So this is my first time with this group. And I'm pretty new to the startup scene, and I've been working at the startup called Mixer for about 1.5 years. Before that, I was working with Nokia, doing software development tools, doing some mobile development on Symbian OS, basically working on large mobile platforms. So an opportunity came up for me to get into internet radio streaming. So this is a good opportunity to take a risk in my life. And so about 1.5 years ago, I joined this company. And well, a little background about me is, so my background is actually as an audiologist. I've always been interested in sounds and music, digital technology. As part of being a researcher in audiology and neurophysiology, I had to write code. I found out I liked to write code better, so I became a programmer. And I'm also a bass player, playing a band in town, low rent, and just one little claim to fame, we won. The band I play in won Ham's Battle of the Bands, so I got to play at the Moody Theater recently. And
nice.
So that's about it. I can retire now. That's as far as my music career is probably going to go. So anyway, my full-time gig is to work at Mixer, and we've been working on a new platform for about 1.5 years. So we just launched on June 3rd. And so this was the background of this company is it's owned by an investment group called Harris Preston. They're actually on 600 Congress in the One American Bank building. And there were a bunch of guys that made a bunch of money from Citrix virtualization platform. And so they left Citrix and they said, well, let's start a company. So they experimented maybe 6 years ago with several app ideas, and they got into this ringtone thing. They figured, well, how can we send ringtones to dumb phones? So at this time, there was no iPhone out there, no Android devices you could put MP3s on. And so within a period of 1 year, they grew to 20 million unique users a month. Well, okay, so that was fine. They realized all of a sudden the iPhone comes out, Android comes out. Well, you don't really need ringtones quite as much. So that market has been rapidly declining. It's kind of leveled off. There's still people that want to buy ringtones. There's people that buy, believe it or not, there's people that spend $3 to buy a 30-second segment of a song. They could just go spend 99 cents on from iTunes. So anyways, they got into another business, Mixer Social Radio. If you actually search for Mixer Radio right now, the SEO probably comes up. You're going to see Mixer Social Radio, and they were doing this simultaneous listening, chat rooms, complete flop. So they had a bunch of the technology. They moved the company from Florida to Austin, hired me about 1.5 years ago to revamp their mobile products, which I've done. And so we just had an official launch in the App Store and Google Play. We're still working on our web service. But so this is a ringtone and radio, which what we're trying to do is we have all these people that are coming looking for free and premium content and ringtones. We're trying to also introduce them to the notion that you can come in and you can also program your station. So we're kind of like Pandora, but you can actually, we're somewhere in between the on-demand world and the Pandora. Sit back and just let us spoon feed you what we think that you're going to like. So you can go in and edit, thumb up and thumb down. We've got very good suggestion engines, and I'll kind of get into how all that sort of stuff works. So that's not particularly interesting in itself. Well, another internet radio streaming company, well, there's already tons of it. It's a very crowded market. One thing I learned about a startup, if you say, we're like this, but we do this, that's probably not differentiating enough. So we're looking into doing music as a service, and I'll show that later. So I'm not really going to do a product demo or anything like that. You could download ringtones, edit them, program your stations. It's it's pretty similar to a lot of the offerings that are out there. So one of the key challenges that we had, and this really isn't necessarily about music necessarily, but something, and there was no playbook for this because I don't know anybody that's ever done this, but when you have a platform where you have 20 million install base of some 4 or 5 million, 7 or 8 million email addresses, how do you create a new platform and then all of a sudden plop this new platform on top? So we spent a year and a half trying to figure out how we can run a beta simultaneously and then gradually upgrade these users to mobile apps. And so we've done that launch. We've got tons of hate mail when all of a sudden you move someone's cheese. You get a lot of pissed off people, but in general it has gone fairly smoothly. But that's probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my career, is to migrate that many users onto a new platform with a completely new UI and then put out fires at the same time. So right now we're 18th in the top free apps for music on Android. The ringtone app itself is still very popular, and so as new users are migrating to music, it seems to be sticking. We're growing at a small rate, so the decline that we had seen in ringtones, we're actually starting to gain users to the platform. So I got a bunch of slides that say internet radio is going to be huge. Everybody that here already knows that. So this just a little slide to show you that 80% of people still get their listening from terrestrial radio. So the reason that investors are still interested in this technology, even though we're one of many, is that there's this entire untapped market of terrestrial radio stations, and there's still, you have Clear Channel, which owns iHeart, but you have all these other smaller companies that own several terrestrial radio stations. They have no internet radio solution. So there's still a huge market there to try and convert terrestrial radio users over to digital radio. And then these are just more investor kind of slides. Yes, internet radio is going to grow. Not quite so interested in that. But just to give you an idea of where we fit into and what the sort of landscape is for internet radio, is what you have is everyone knows Spotify, everyone knows Beats, everyone probably knows how much Apple paid for Beats, and nobody really knows why still. So you have the on-demand market, and that's where most of us in this room probably fall in if you don't buy. So I'm a big fan of Rdio. In fact, a lot of our UI and Rdio, a lot of our UI and Mixer is inspired by Rdio. So this lets you download what you want. You can take it offline, listen to it when you want. So we have the on-demand, and then we have this other section down here, which is user-generated content, which one of these companies is legal and the other two are not. This one is user-generated. A lot of people are familiar with SoundCloud. My daughter even uploads a lot of her own content to that and shares it with friends. And then you have user-generated content, so people are actually uploading their own content. So you buy something from iTunes, convert it to an MP3. People are uploading that content and then serving it back. So there's a lot of lawsuits against Grooveshark, 8Tracks. I don't know how it's still around, but their model is definitely very suspicious. So on the other end, Slacker, actually, we go over here into subscription. So on the other end, you have sort of lean back radio, where everyone knows Pandora. You just search for an artist, and then you sit back and it's going to serve up stuff. And as you're listening, you thumb up, you create a profile for yourself. So we're a little bit in between this, in that we figured out to maintain, still be DMCA compliant, how many songs. And so when a user adds a certain number of songs, so you can create these playlists in your station, we figured out how we can maintain a DMCA compliant playlist, but play it back to the user, so you can engage with the app a little bit more and be able to hear more of what you want, rather than the Pandora model that is kind of sits back. So the technology is there, and it sounds good when you use it, but trying to explain this and sell it to users, it's probably been our most challenging part. How do you get in, explain a station editing process to a user? We probably don't do the best job at that. But when you actually use it, you find the technology actually is pretty neat. So that's basically, so we built this platform, and so now what we're doing, we've got some marketing and sales guys doing more of a business-to-business strategy. So software as a service, or I just call it music as a service. So what we're able to do now is clone our back-end services that creates the profiles for the users, creates their taste profiles, their musical taste. And then the clients can create their own stations, where they can even take our app, reskin it, and actually just have to be their own app. So what that looks like would be, for example, we're talking to Ford, and each one of the dealers wants to have their own music app. So it would also be a messaging system. They can insert their own video ads, pictures of cars and other deals, and then create their own custom stations around this. Another place is we're talking to a lot of there's maybe 100 or so smaller network carriers. So we're talking to most of them. A lot of them want a response to Beats. So you've seen AT&T Beats advertising deals with bundled packages. So a lot of these smaller carriers, similar to Cricket, want to have a music offering, and so we're offering this white label solution. You could take our app. We'll rescan it for you, put in all your own advertising, and then you can upsell customers for on-demand services, removal of ads, and that sort of thing. So that's the sort of the Mixer background. What I thought would just be interesting, and what I find a lot of people most interested in, is like what actually makes a music company, and what are some of the companies that are involved around actually creating an internet radio company. So we're not talking about like a real-time stream like you get from TuneIn. So this is going to be sort of on demand from a certain catalog. So I kind of walk you through the process, and I've done this with my own album. So you have your content. You can go to a provider like CD Baby, and then you can, as you're going through this process, you upload your raw content, and you say, well, how do I want this distributed? There's all these options that you go through. And of course, there's iTunes, there's Amazon. This whole thing costs like $100 through CD Baby. And then there's several other options. Do I want this to stream internationally? What countries do I want it to stream in? And what are these content providers? So the one we use actually is MediaNet. A competitor to them is 7 Digital. And so you can say whether or not you want this music to be streamed through, say, Spotify or us. So if you're Thomas York, you obviously have the power to tell your record label, saying, I don't want to have anything to do with streaming, so take it out. Some other artists don't have that sort of flexibility, so their stuff gets on there even though they may not want it to. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, whether artists think that music streaming is good for them or not. So anyways, your content gets ingested by some of these content providers, which there's 23 million tracks. So effectively, unless you're, say, Pandora or iTunes, everyone is feeding from pretty much the same content. So whether you're going to any of those providers that I showed you before, we all have the same stuff. There's some variance in that, but in general, the core offering is pretty similar. It's just in how fast can you ingest this content. So, but the content by itself doesn't do anything for you. What you need is a recommendation service. And if any of you have followed some of the news on Spotify recently bought Echo Nest, and that's very disruptive to the internet streaming business, because they're pretty much the only one that offered a recommendation service, unless Pandora's got a very good one on their own. Apple has one. So now there's these other competitors that are moving in. Rovi, RaceNote, they had something, but now they're moving even faster. And we're talking with these companies as well. Is how are we going to get off of Echo Nest now that Spotify owns Echo Nest? What does that mean for everyone else? And actually, the day that was already announced, we're leaving Echo Nest. So that remains to be seen how that plays out with everyone else that's using Echo Nest right now. But in essence, all the recommendations that you get for most of the services, playlists, if you type in an artist on most of these services and get related artists, they're coming through a suggestion engine such as Echo Nest. And so what happens is you have to ingest both of these catalogs. You have to ingest all of the playable tracks over here and then you have to ingest the recommendations, and then you also have to remove all the content that you're not allowed to play. So there's certain content that you may not have access rights to. So it's a very tricky job to figure out, how do I map the recommendations back to the content provider that I need to fetch from? So the way that we do this, so we have a database that maps all these things together. And then what we will wind up doing is I'll thumb up Pink and I'll say, all right, well, I like the artist Pink. So we'll ask Econest for a track. We'll say, well, give me Pink, or give me artists similar to Pink. And we'll actually get an ID, and then we'll go ask MediaNet, well, give me that. So we're actually doing on demand over on this side, but to the user, it's not really predictive. Econest handles our DMCA predictability. So the music cannot be predictable due to our license. If you're willing to pay $10 a month for a service like Spotify, then it can be predictable, but then your licensing costs go through the roof. And so that's sort of that's the general, how does internet radio work in the simplified sort of case. And I think that was pretty much all I wanted to cover. Thought you guys have any thoughts or questions?
I have one. How are you monetizing?
Right now it's direct sales through advertising. So we make custom stations, progressive. So they'll do takeover ads on their stations, and then we're going to move into video ads. And then the real monetization will be white label. So hopefully some of the smaller carriers will be doing custom apps for. It's not profitable at this point, but nope, I think Pandora is the only company that has ever turned a profit. And Spotify lost $100 million last year. But they got $250 million in funding, so.
But they also have a $200 million lawsuit pending against them too last year.
Spotify does?
Yeah.
From who?
I don't know. I just remember doing some, not paying people and stuff like that because they're losing money.
Interesting.
And, I was reading that Spotify in the next 5 years will probably be out of business because there's no way for them to make money, turn a profit.
No, and that's the thing, that this model, this on-demand, that's specifically why we didn't go to the on-demand model, is that the licensing costs are so incredibly high that, again, they lost $100 million last year on, I think they have 40 million users, 10% are paying subscribers. So the retention of the paying subscribers isn't high enough to really sustain that sort of model.
Yeah, and Tim Westergren, founder of Pandora, since they've gone public, had about 3 million shares when they went public. And he currently has just over 200,000. He's been selling his stock.
Yeah. Interesting.
Sees the writing on the wall, you know.
Yeah. So unless you're a Beats that has maybe some other commodity that you can sell to recoup your losses, yeah, I'm not entirely sure. And so that's why we're pushing into this white label model and offering these custom solutions, so we can actually get the engineering work paid for up front. So.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that works over the next few months.
How many clients or users do you have, and what's been the general feedback?
We have 2 million uniques. So from our peak, about 20 million. Since we released our beta, we've been doing this for about a year and a half. We finally came out with a stable product about 3 months ago, and we've actually started growing again. So we're somewhere, 2 million, give or take 100,000 every month.
And if have you gotten a lot of feedback back from people saying they love it?
Yeah, well, you can, the Google Play Store would give it, there's.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, so that's so people really love this app, especially on Android, and when something changes, they let you know about it. It's very strange that in my experience that the iOS app, probably for every 20 reviews we get on Android, we get one on iOS. I don't know why, it's just our app, but Android users are very vocal. And so we've gotten lots of hate mail. We've been threatened to be sued because we've changed things. But ringtone users also aren't the smartest group of customers in the world. But we've also got tons of feedback saying, oh, this is better than Pandora, goodbye, iHeartRadio. So we've gotten lots of encouraging feedback that people have seen the value in being able to lean forward, select the artist you want, and you know that they're going to hear that later. So that's where we keep pushing into that sort of space where that we can fill this middle ground of not being predictive but being somewhat predictive.
What are the other 2 apps you guys are working on? You said this is one of 3, and I noticed in the top 100 music apps, number 18 was what is it? I forget.
Yeah, so these are just 3 clients. So really we have an iOS client, we have a web client,
Okay.
And an Android client. So we have a Windows client, but that only does ringtones and nobody uses it. So we haven't seen any compelling reason at all to approach the Windows platform. We just don't have enough users, or there's not enough interest. So.
Okay, anybody else?
Yes,
How
Tim.
do you think the recommendation services are with Echo Nest? Like say if you, I don't know if it's possible to quantify how much longer people listen because of the recommendations that they're given, or so if Echo Nest were to go away, how much of an impact would that have on the company itself?
Oh, we wouldn't survive. No one would survive without recommendations. Certainly. So we certainly know that the competitors Rovi and Gracenote, but our entire UI. So our UI has suggested artists, and then we'll have song suggestions. So we'll be able to filter out the hottest songs. So almost every UI is built around that. If you've used say iHeartRadio or Rdio, they've got like a hotness. Like I want to explore new artists, or I only want to play this artist. So all those sorts of things are based on Echo Nest technology. So some of that UI may not work particularly well anymore, or you may wind up going to another service and your recommendations wind up being junk. If you listen to just like recommendation kind of radio, sometimes these things can go off in the weeds, and Rdio and Spotify, they do this as well, or the service goes out. But you can listen to a band like Rush who spans multiple genres, and chances are you're not going to like what you hear. But most of the time, if you're in a fairly narrow niche, you're listening to pop music or even some indie type of stuff, it does pretty well. But if that goes away, then definitely most of the music companies would probably cease to function, which is why Rovi and Gracenote are rapidly going to fill that sort of void.
So have you seen an impact yet from Echo Nest being bought by Spotify? Or?
No, because our service contract goes through November, so they have to honor their service agreements with us until then. We actually did just get a 6-month extension, so we are talking to them. They have some partner opportunities for us, which I can't really talk about, but that sounded fairly interesting. But we don't really know what's going to happen after that.
I just have 2 questions. One is, how do you go about marketing your app to users? And then the second thing was, I know you're approaching stuff to monetize and become profitable. You said using like white label solutions as
Right.
marketing towards mobile network providers. But is there a break-even point for your Android and iOS clients, and at which you would, if you had enough users, you could use ad revenue as a sustainable income stream?
Yeah, maybe someone else would have to answer the first question. When you have no money, how do you market your app? If someone can tell me how to do that. If someone is a guerrilla marketing expert, we got 600,000 Facebook users, and we have a pretty extensive email list, so we do that. But otherwise, we have absolutely no marketing budget. So since we're really doing more direct sales, and we've got sales guys that are out selling this white label solution, this really more is a proof of concept. Look, we built this. We're growing traffic, but that's really not our focus. But in order to turn profitable, we'd probably have to triple, quadruple our numbers. So I couldn't give you an exact number, but we'd have to grow fairly significantly based on the ad revenue that we get. But there are companies. There's a company called Zedge that has 22 million users, and they're a ringtone company, and they're extremely profitable. And all they do is they run banner ads and interstitial ads, but you got to have a hell of a lot of traffic.
Have you guys gone to like AT&T used to preload feeds? I know it's not the exact same services what you're offering, but have you gone to like maybe T-Mobile or someone else and preloading that as like approaching them to preload Mixer?
Yeah, so we're talking to the smaller carriers. So an example of one we're talking to is GCI in Alaska. So they own Alaska. So they're not huge numbers. These are generally more like in the hundreds of thousands of subscribers, but they all have this sort of network. So once we get ourselves in the door of one of these smaller carriers, then we're hoping that this sort of expands out, and some of the other smaller carriers. There's even American Samoa and Virgin Islands and whatnot. So, but no, we're not talking to any of the larger ones. We're starting small there.
What about international growth?
That requires specific licensing. So when you license music in the U.S., you deal with one license. When you license in, say, Europe, you have to go each country, and then you have to negotiate with each label individually. And we have guys that know how to do that, but we haven't seen much interest in that, or a way to turn a profit in the long run of going international. Yes, sir.
What's your contingency if the Echo Nest situation goes south? Are you leaning more toward like Rovi or Gracenode, or you thought about mining your own user taste data for some sort of recommendation?
The latter, we would just ride around. Yeah. So it would take a while to build up the content based on the users that we have. So most of our users are country and hip hop, and we could write that now, and that would do particularly well. It's when it gets off into these edge cases. So we have enough data to actually do that, but it's not going to be quite as robust, and then we'd have to do our own DMCA compliance kind of playlist. But we have talked about that as an option, and we will do it if we have to.
Does Last.fm have any kind of recommendation API?
Who?
Last.fm?
No, they do scrobbling, but I don't know.
Like, because they collect all that.
Yeah.
They have you guys know what Last.fm is?
Yeah,
They
they
collect
use
all that
Echo Nest,
information. But
I think they also use Echo Nest.
they do?
For recommendation?
I think so.
Yeah, I believe that. Yeah, I don't think they do. I looked at them as well, but no, I'm pretty sure they don't.
Anybody else?
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Tim.
Cool, man. Great questions. Thanks.
Okay, so next up, we're going to have Alex, who is the co-organizer of the group, come up and talk. And this is actually, for full disclosure, this is the project that he and I are working on. And I won't say anything else. We'll just sit back and watch what you guys do.
How's it going?
Awesome.
Sweet. I'm Alex, and I've been working on Music Meets Video for about a year now. I started out in LA with some guys and moved on, and it basically started from, I've majored in film studies from Claremont McKenna College, and when I left college I went to study or work in the film industry, and I ended up at this forensic video enhancement place, which was kind of weird, but I was helping a lot of friends with shooting music videos, and I thought it'd be really cool to have a site where you could sort of crowdfund music videos, and that already exists. It's called Genero.tv. It's a pretty cool site. It's basically filmmaker based, but they host really, $5,000, $10,000 contests for really big global artists like John Mayer and Alicia Keys. So I sort of pivoted my idea, and I was on YouTube and seeing so many cover contests, not contests, but just covers in general. And there's a lot of television shows out right now, like The Voice and American Idol. They've, for the last 10 years, they've been known pretty well. They're actually kind of dropping in ratings now, but I thought it'd be really cool to sort of take that and transition it to the web. So sort of hosting cover video contests, which is exactly what we do at Music Meets Video. So we host two different kinds of contests. One's with big pop stars like Lorde or Katy Perry or Pharrell. But we also work with independent artists. So what I wanted to do with Music Meets Video previously with like the music video contests, I wanted to work with independent artists that were up and coming and they needed a little bit of exposure. So we sort of introduced that to Music Meets Video. And so that's our other type of contest. So we contact up and coming artists that we see or we read about on different music blogs across the web and just ask and see if they're interested in hosting a contest with us. And we put up all the prize money for every contest. I'll start going through the site. I don't have a pitch deck like Tim, but this is our site basically. It's really basic. Our aesthetic is pop culture, our demographics between like 13 and 22 years old. So we got these bright pop colors. And we host contests. So this is just on Envision app. These are just still images. We're actually coming out with our beta in like 3 weeks, maybe. We partnered with a development company in town, sort of outsourced that. And then we picked up our own CTO that works at PayPal. And he's gonna sort of take the handoff for us from the web development company. So you just go to a contest, firework. And this is the firework contest. So we've got all the submissions here. Once again, this is just a mock-up. And we're sort of pitching Music Meets Video as a social network as well. So there's a feed on every contest, there's a feed on every profile page, and they're all interconnected like Facebook, basically. And you can do two things when you go to a contest. You can either enter and upload your video and sign off and upload your video, or you can start voting. So this voting arena is our bread and butter. It's based off a company called Bix that launched in 2006, and they sold 4 months later to Yahoo for $50 million. And they sold because of this voting arena they had, which gets a ton of page views per user and a lot of time on site. So you see two videos side by side, and this is the queue up here. So if I voted for this one, this losing video would be replaced by the next video in queue. And we're starting off with 15 votes per contest, per user, per day. So we don't know if that's the right number. We're just gonna try it out in beta and see how it works. Ideally, we would have the number of votes per videos in the contest. So you can go back and forth with these two until your votes run out, and basically every user can vote 15 times in the same contest every day. These are our ad spaces here, and that's how we're getting a lot of our revenue. So there's a social media part of the site. That's Scott. It's my ex partner. He's really attractive, so we left him up there. So what doesn't exist is a sort of cover video community, or a cover artist community, I should say. There's a ton on YouTube, and a lot of them are celebrities in their own right. They've got like 300,000 subscribers or 1 million subscribers, and they have their own agents in LA. They're pretty legit, but they're still not really making a lot of money. They're just growing their fan base, and it's not really going anywhere for them unless they get picked up or have their own original music. So we wanted to create this space that lets you give a little information about yourself. Once again, you have the feed, all the videos you've done. My voice keeps messing up. And then we have this followers and following settings here, like Instagram or Twitter. Any social media has this. we wanted to keep it from being too gimmicky, but we still wanted to have this sort of like feeling of competition. So we made it, you can see how many times you voted, number of comments, etc. So that's the gist of it. We have a browse page that live filters whatever you want to look at, whether it's contests, videos, or staff selections. It's pretty basic. And just some tabs with our about, FAQs, contact, etc. This is our beta version. So we'd ideally like to expand and start doing music video competitions and dance competitions. So if they're, like last year, Gangnam Style blew up. And if we were to host a contest for Gangnam Style dances, it would probably blow up as well, we think. So yeah, users go through 10 days of voting, and after 10 days of voting, we put them in a final voting arena of the top 5, and we do another 4 or 5 day vote off to get the winner of them all. There's a tab that's not here right now. It's supposed to be a details tab here, and it shows all of the prize money and the second and third place prizes that we're offering. So on our first 3 contests, we're hosting Pharrell's song Lord, or Pharrell's song Happy, Lord's song Team, and our independent artist is named Jordan Corey, and she has a song called Hold Me Under. And each of those is getting $250 for first place, some headphones from a headphone company we've partnered with, and a USB microphone. So more than one person gets a prize. And that's about it.
Let me add a couple more.
Oh, sorry.
So I guess one key thing is that if you scroll down, you'll see it's like we're featuring all these big name artists, but for legal reasons, I'm sure everyone here who's tried to do anything with licensing knows that is a pain in the ass to try to get any sort of permission to host those contests. As we started going through this, we found all the gray areas with YouTube and covers, and it's like we have a music attorney that we've hired to iron out some contracts and some stuff too. So anyways, we're trying to make this more of a music discovery platform through social voting. So the independent artists are really that's who we're really targeting. We're trying to get a way for indie artists to get a new audience using this and incentivizing. Obviously, if you don't know a song, you're not as naturally incentivized to participate in a cover of that song, but we're incentivizing people to use it through cash prizes and non-cash prizes too. I don't want to get too lost in the legal part of it, but there's a bunch of licenses that one has to get through to host these kind of things, and by targeting independent artists, they usually have, the ones that we've talked to at least, they have full control of all the different licenses that we would need. And so for our beta test, which is gonna, like Alex said, it's in a few weeks, we're doing Lord and Pharrell. Our attorney's not too happy with us about it, but we're doing it because we said this is beta. We're not generating revenue off of this. This is just to get user feedback. And so because I'm sure that a lot of the question people who would know about this are gonna be like, well, how the hell are you gonna host? This is gonna get taken down in two hours. So just to clarify, Alex's background is in blogging for independent music. So and I'm just a huge indie music fan. So we understand that space, that area, and with the popularity of South by and ACL, what we call indie music is starting to become just popular music. And so I always say that a perfect artist for Music Meets Video would have been Lorde 2 years ago, because she got popular on the blogs. So if we had reached out to her, say we had some good traction, we could have reached out to Lord's people and said, we really dig your song. You're starting to get a little traction online. Can we host a contest for blah, blah, blah song? And now she's huge, so people could have Googled Lord and found the contest that we had hosted. So anyways, just wanted to add that as an important nugget, but I will sit back down and open the room up for questions.
Luis is a much better public speaker than I am.
Any questions?
Have you guys considered, obviously just hosting contests without the artist's permission is a legal gray area, but have you considered, selling this to the labels that would want to host contests and do that? Because I think
sit up here.
I'm all about the independent music community as well, but starting another music discovery platform for artists or for people to join to find new artists and stuff as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's kind of the business plan, is to partner with labels eventually. So we are a feeder of the artists. So yeah, if you run an indie label out of LA, let's put an example. We would probably contact you first, but you could contact us and say, hey, we noticed that you're hosting these contests. Can we feed you our artists? Can you be a vehicle for us to get our artists out there to a new audience?
So instead of spending $5,000 on a digital ad campaign, you would work with us and we would present, your artists to a number of users.
Oh yeah.
Did that answer what you were?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, somewhat. As well, something that comes to mind, and it's funny because I was just dealing with a contest app, Facebook contest app that was video submission based too. I think having some way for the artists to widgetize it into their own world, powered by music meets video, would be.
That's an interesting. I don't think we thought about that one. Part of what we want to do, and part of we're trying with the attorney, we're working it into the legal agreement for the independent artists, is they have to use social media. So our vision is, for example, I keep saying Lord because but imagine Lord a few years ago, if she had blasted out to her followers and said, my new song blah 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 is being hosted on Music Meets Video, submit your videos and tell your friends, and then people who submit their video go, I just posted my video on Music Meets Video, vote for me till there's 5 more days or whatever. But I hadn't thought that's a good idea. Yeah, we could totally link it to their
gives
stuff.
them a way that it's powered by y'all, still exists on your site, but gives them a way for it to live on their site or on their social media page, what have you.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
That is cool.
Because I'm going to be paying this. It's called Heyo, is the app, and paying them $30 a month to host it, or to have their contest functionality as an app.
Gotcha.
Very cool. I think even white label it better. You could sell that to.
So you're saying take it more like a B2B, so we would be licensing our technology so they can host contests in their own websites?
Exactly. I think that you'll have a higher revenue from less users that way.
That's an interesting idea. Mm-hmm. Anybody else?
So just a use case, my daughter she wanted to go see Avril Lavigne in New York. She's 12, and so she got her on their they did this on Instagram, but you would have to hash the contest, and then people would vote on it. But this would be, this would have been.
She's right in our wheelhouse of users. Yeah, that demographic.
So my daughter's 12. How old do you have to be to enter a contest?
13.
13. We have to work that out with the attorney, but yeah.
You get your dad to.
Or unless we
account for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Or you just do it anyway and lie, everyone else does. Yeah.
So is there a way to search songs? So I know the first thing.
In here,
yeah. So you just.
Is there a search? Okay, so you can search.
You would just go to browse and.
And you can. It's broken down by genre, status. Oh, because you can also. Closed contests will stay up. So if, for example, if a song that we hosted got popular a year or two later and it started coming up on Google, it would come up on here. It just wouldn't be live, so you couldn't vote, but you could still see stuff on there.
And if you are a user and you have a video up and you want to share it, it doesn't go directly to the voting arena. If you shared a video, it would come up like this, just as a single video view with the queue. But as soon as you voted, it would go to the voting arena. So you're able to share without going directly to this.
So have you approached higher profile artists about it all, or are you just?
Well, so we're taking it kind of baby steps. So right now we're really just focused on beta and getting feedback from actual users to make sure that they like all the features and that they're happy with the product. Through our music attorney, we have made some connections with, I guess, kind of biz dev people in the industry who do have, you know, licensing connections and connections with the publishers directly. Because for some of these, so what we learned is that for somebody like a Rihanna, it gets even fuzzier because there could be several people who technically own the song. So there's the ASCAP and BMI who you just pay them and they kind of take care of it. The licensing stuff. I mean, but even with that, there's like mechanical. It's a giant mess. So yeah, I mean, we're not fully focused on that right now because our ultimate vision is to use the bigger contest as more of a marketing tool to get people onto the site, and then they figure out. Because one thing is at least the initial for the beta test, the big name artists, the amount of money you can win will be less than what you can win for the indie artists. So that we're trying to actively pull people to go to that one more than the big one.
We basically don't want to approach record labels until we have a live site because they're just going to brush us aside.
It's like approaching a VC. If you have nothing to show me, you know, we want to make sure that we're trying to be on everyone's good side. Obviously the big thing that'll solve that problem is just pay them. But for now, what we're trying to do is just build our user base and come to them when we have enough users to be, hey, we can be a good resource. Like, we're not trying to steal money from your artist or you. Like, we want to be a vehicle for you to use us to promote your music or your artist. But to answer your question, it's on the giant list of to-dos. But right now we're just really focused on getting the beta done and starting to get some actual user feedback. Because a lot of the feedback for the site has been excellent. Like, the prototype has been, it looks really cool. Like, I could really see this taking off, but we really want some people to actually sit down and use it. And unfortunately, we've gotten a little bit delayed because the developer has been a little slow. I mean, it looks sleek and simple, but it's actually pretty complicated, the back end stuff. So it's taken longer than we had hoped, but in a few weeks it should be out, and that's what we're really focused on now. After that, if it hopefully goes well and people say this is awesome, I really want to use it, then the next step is to really make sure we get some artists lined up via the appropriate channels.
This might be something else that's on your to-do list, but you mentioned about indie artists and catching them before they're kind of widespread and everybody knows about them. Have you thought about like how you would do that? Is there any like systematic way to pick up on trends like Facebook likes or like have people follow them on Twitter and stuff like that? Yeah,
systematically, we haven't really thought of that yet. We just kind of, at least so far, we have between Alex and I, we have a pretty good finger on the pulse of what's going on in the music blogs. That is a good idea, and actually the CTO who isn't here, one of his giant skill sets is data. So if he can tap into some sort of API or not even have to be API, but just some sort of way to get those kind of metrics, that would be really cool too.
Yeah, I actually saw a presentation in South by where they were tracking Lord actually, which you mentioned a few times. And way before she kind of exploded, they kind of was ramping up with the amount of plays on Spotify. And even the people haven't really heard of it.
Yeah, so you can almost think of that more of like Moneyball and baseball, where like we're kind of like the scouts, where we think we have a good idea, but instead of doing it data driven, would be a really cool approach to doing that too.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And we do have some criteria set up for every artist with the amount of like Facebook likes and their image and their song singability, their cover ability.
But that's just us.
That's
as far as hard numbers, it's how many we don't want somebody that has like 2 followers on Twitter, and there's a certain threshold, but as far as likability, that's just us going, we think this will work, or we don't think this will work.
Yeah.
At the moment, maybe we'll figure out some more systematic way to do it. Anybody else? Yeah.
I was just gonna say, I mean, catching an artist who is not signed, to the extent that you want to deal with people who you don't have to jump through any legal hoops with, I think it's going to be kind of tough.
There's always going to be some because, completely unsigned artists, we may get lucky, but those are a little bit harder to find. Just from talking to our attorney, she's a local attorney, she told us that the artists that we're targeting at the stage that we're targeting, ultimately there may be some sort of legal hoops every time, but she said that it's very attainable where they're at.
Yeah, because if you approach it with an artist who's not achieved award status or Rihanna status, they're still going to look at it as a promotional benefit.
Exactly, that's how we're presenting it, right?
Even though you have to get the right clearances and licenses.
Ultimately, it works in their favor.
Right.
Yeah.
That's how we're positioning it, exactly.
We have 5 or 6 artists signed up already, and the way we've gotten to them is just through blogging and finding someone we really like and just emailing them directly. Artists are really easy to get a hold of these days. Their information's on Facebook, their YouTube, their personal site, so they're accessible.
And again, because Alex has a background in blogging and that world, he knows the good ways to get to their publishers and to the artists. I was like, oh, this is really easy, but I would never have known had he not shown me how to do it. So I have a question. Yep.
How are you planning to maintain the engagement with a particular contest for the public? If I visit the site one time and I see the contest, so that's pretty cool. But why I should return 2 days later and say to see what's going on with that particular contest? How are you going to maintain the engagement?
Yeah, well, the way we're trying to do it is to build it based off people reaching out to their social network. That's an interesting question. For somebody who doesn't really know the artist, I don't know. That's something we have to think about. Yeah. But so what we're trying to do is make it highly social. So not only are the indie artists whose song we're hosting, but the contestants themselves are continually blasting out to their people, and we will be too, saying there's only 2 days left. I need more votes. Kind of like how they do on American Idol or those kind of shows. That's what we're going for. Not a great answer for your question. That's something that we'll have to write down on our beta test to make sure that. But
if you had a friend in one of these contests and they asked you to keep voting for them and they thought they had potential to win, you might go back, repeatedly to just go and use up all your votes in a day.
Couldn't you tap the bloggers, the music bloggers themselves?
Yeah, that's part of our business plan too.
Yeah, it would be awesome if you could talk one of those guys into actually singing a cover too.
Yeah, to actually see their face.
Yeah.
But yeah, part of our business plan is to partner with leading blogs. Yeah.
And I guess I had another question. You're hosting a contest, but you're not posting the videos, correct? Or you
hosting the video. Yeah.
And that's all going to be on YouTube, right? How do you get people who stumble on it on YouTube back over here? If can you keep it unlisted in YouTube, right? Or
I don't think I follow the question completely.
How are people gonna stumble on it in YouTube outside of?
And then come check it out on Music Meets Video.
Yeah, how are you gonna mitigate that?
I hadn't honestly.
That would be a tip of the user to say, "Hey,
it might be
YouTube,
on
make sure
them.
to link."
Yeah, it's on them to.
It's on them.
Yeah, and the way we're incentivizing people to do that is because there's cash, there's prizes.
So there isn't anything that's from the site directly where it's
not at the moment.
Tie
Maybe
into YouTube
into.
and be okay, here you go, send it here, or do all that work for somebody, So
yeah. Not at the moment, but something we can certainly look into. I just don't know about the legalities of pulling people out. I don't know, but that's something certainly.
Yeah, you can have a link in the description that sends them to anywhere.
Okay.
So they could easily put the link to
Oh yeah, they can. I'm talking about us,
us.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, yeah, they created the video and they're just linking it on your
Right,
site.
that's fine.
You probably
Yeah.
can't really control.
Right.
Okay, so the onus would be on them to do the upload.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we're gonna add videos and stuff and kind of back end instructions. People say we recommend that you are active in your social media, including YouTube, to make sure that your followers, your family, friends, whatever, are voting for you. And one thing too, for people who don't really know this whole cover song world, cover video world, and YouTube, like the people have significant following on YouTube. Like it's a pretty big market of people, and they have significant reach, social media reach.
Isn't that how Bieber got started?
That is, we tried. We actually incorporated him in our
on our intro video.
To just he's one of the names that we mentioned of people who got popular through that posting contest or just posting covers on YouTube. Yeah.
So I gather there's a user-generated content kind of loophole with anyone can post it over on YouTube and maybe it gets taken down, maybe not. So that's not your hang-up. The hang-up is, are you guys liable even for just, having Katy Perry's face there and hosting a contest in her name? Is that the...
We actually have an artist that is doing renditions of the portraits of each artist we're using. So
okay.
We're not using actual copyrighted images.
It won't be an image of...
Because I mean, all kinds of companies on their Facebook pages or whatnot are using other people's likenesses or using someone else to like host a little mini contest, caption contests or what have you as well. I almost feel like, and again, I'm sure your lawyer's got it all straight, but I almost feel like you just hosting a contest, it's on the users for covering the song. Wouldn't it not really be on you guys for hosting the contest? I know you're trying to do it all in the up and up, but
yeah,
I'm just curious because it feels like that shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, we're trying to do it on the up and up. I'm sure that we could. The thing is, I'm not sure how much it actually holds up if it actually was to go to any sort of. But you can put. I mean, we are putting language to somewhat distance ourselves, but ultimately we just don't want to get in. That seems like that weird. We don't want to get in that murky area.
Sure.
We're just trying to get it as above water as possible. But yeah. I'm sure because it is ultimately you can say, well, you put it on YouTube, so in theory, you understand that you're putting this video of your cover. You don't own this cover.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are using the contest.
Exactly. We're not
promoting it.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not creating the content that might be.
These are the discussions we have with that attorney at all times. Yeah, it's a really strange area.
There's a difference between hosting linking to content that's elsewhere,
right,
and promoting a contest that appears like Katy Perry is associated with it. I mean, that's the issue.
Is that the issue?
I guess.
Yeah.
Again, you speak to your attorney about it, but that may be one of the issues that you're looking
at.
Trying to get.
That's been the main issue.
That is the main issue. Yeah.
It's the publicity rights that she has in the name. It's the pictures that she owns or whoever owns.
Exactly. So we're trying to actively get away from those because for the indie artists, they have to provide us with the images. They actually provide us with the song too, the instrumental version. So that's what we're really trying to just get to that. But for the time being, especially like for beta, it's kind of whatever because you're just using it to get feedback. But for those, we have an artist who's doing really cool actually images. But yeah, you're right. Ultimately, it is Kate. Whether it's somebody drawing it or a picture, it is her likeness.
Yeah.
So it's just another one of the.
What you've able to do is representing that she's involved in the contest.
Totally.
And promoting the contest.
Yeah.
And the labels, I mean, they're making money. They're monetizing like from Content ID on YouTube. They're already monetizing the videos.
There's other people that do.
So really, the use of the videos, I would imagine, is not so much of an issue.
Yeah, and ultimately, again, it's one of those things where we're just waiting to get some traction. But
yeah, I think it was an easy.
There are, YouTube does pay the record labels. Ultimately, like they have some revenue sharing models in place, and we're totally okay with doing that down the road. At this point, they wouldn't even answer an email or a phone call. So, sure. But yeah, that. Ultimately, we may have to just do some sort of revenue sharing thing with YouTube, or we might not, depending on. It gets even weirder.
They're getting it anyway. That's what he said.
Right. Ultimately, it comes back to them. Yeah, they're already
covers a song on there. Those ad revenues.
Especially the big like Justin Bieber types.
Yeah, those ones. Yeah, exactly.
Did y'all see the article in The Guardian today that said that independent label content might be removed from YouTube within days?
I had not.
If they don't sign up with YouTube Music.
Yeah, they don't
sign up.
Yeah, YouTube's gonna roll their own ad-free streaming kind of competitor, and as part of the terms and agreement, like if you don't go along with it, they're gonna cut you out of the ad-free as well as the the freemium stuff they got going on right
Okay.
now.
No, I hadn't read it, but I mean, I don't know how much of an impact that would have. Something to totally note, for sure. But
I think most
Yes.
independent artists will probably go with the flow. They have nothing to
yeah,
lose.
exactly. Yeah.
Whereas the bigger artists or labels that are already associated with Spotify don't want to have
Right.
stuff on that service that will get complicated.
Yeah, and a lot of that comes from just people trying, artists or labels getting the feeling that they're getting ripped off because they're owed money, which is not what we're trying to do at all. You know what I mean? Like, we're trying to work with them to promote. It's a promotional tool, really. It's just a vehicle to get a different way for new fans and old fans to interact with songs that they already liked or that they didn't know about. So it's just a matter of getting in front of the right people to really make that happen. And I mean, ultimately, if it comes down to them just saying, well, you're going to have to pay, then we might just have to go out and get some funding till we have that in the bank,
Right.
to pay the people off and hopefully generate enough revenue through our partnerships and the ads that it still makes sense. You know what I mean? Anybody else?
What's your model on marketing? How are you getting this side out in the real world? How does someone know about you?
Well, we have a couple forms of organic marketing, which Luis was talking about. So if you're an artist, you can reach out to your fan base, or if you're a member, you reach out to your friends and your family to come vote for you. But we're also integrated in some karaoke forums and karaoke sites and participated in those and just kind of talking and raising questions about music based video and hopefully be able to bring some of those users over to our site. We're also talking about some guerrilla marketing tactics, like going to The Voice auditions or American Idol auditions and handing out flyers and saying, if you don't succeed here, then come over and participate in our contests.
But the big one's just going to be this whole. It may not look because it's not live yet, but it's totally built on top of social media. So all those feeds, all these vote, it's all going to be. It'll be publicized. We're linking it all together, so it'll pop up in people's Twitter feeds and their Facebook, and that's how it's gonna. We're trying to get eyeballs through other. You know what I mean? Like somebody sees it on their social media. That's how we hope to get some quick users and a lot of people on the site, especially the independent artists, because we're, if you follow an independent artist at this point, we're assuming or we're hoping that you know them pretty well. So if you see like, oh, Jordan Corey's hosting a cover contest, awesome, let's go check that out, and then they participate and other people see it. So that's basically how we're trying to get that initial marketing.
And we're also just going out to the YouTube cover world is so huge. We just go out to artists and say,
yeah,
hey, we're starting a cover contest site. Come check it out. Sign up to be a free beta user, and we've got a lot of beta testers that way.
Lou, you were raising your hand, yeah?
Yeah, one question, is there a place on your site where people can get the information for the base artist and what their Twitter is?
Yeah, that'll all be
their site and their YouTube and all that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that details button I told you about, that's going to be like right here. We'll have all that information about the artist. And
Okay.
So do you have a mobile strategy, or are you just going to wait and see how the web?
Yeah, at this point, I mean, the developers are so good that it's built so that it can be on mobile.
the site's responsive, so you could do it that way, but we eventually want to build an app to.
Make it smaller. I'm curious now. I'm curious
Oh.
what it look like at like 380.
It won't work on this because this is these are just still
Yeah, these are
images,
just- yeah.
but
Oh, okay, all right.
yeah. But the site will be responsive and hope to have an app in the next year. The Voice actually has an app. It's not very good, so we're not going to do anything like that.
Anybody else? Okay, awesome.
Cool.
Thank you for listening.